Most Americans work harder every year but fall further behind. Why? Because 7 invisible debt traps are draining their future right now, and they don't even know it. These traps don't feel like mistakes. They feel normal. They feel smart. They feel responsible. But by the time you realize what's happening, your 20s are gone, your 30s are sabotaged, and hitting 40 with stability? That ship has already sailed, unless you understand what I'm about to show you. Trap 1. The small monthly payment. Scam. The first debt trap looks harmless. It looks convenient. It looks manageable. And that's exactly why it destroys so many people, because it sneaks into your life disguised as a tiny, friendly, painless monthly payment. Everywhere you look in 2025, companies are selling you the same seductive message. Don't worry about the full price. Just pay $29 a month. Only $19 a month? Split it into 12 easy payments. It's basically nothing. But here's the trick nobody warns you about. You don't feel the damage until it's far too late. And by then, the payments are stacked so high you're drowning under them. I've seen this play out again and again. A $29 fitness membership, a $17 streaming bundle, a $42 phone plan upgrade, a $60 buy now, pay later purchase, a $95 car insurance add-on, a $110 credit card minimum payment. Individually, each one feels manageable. Together, they become a financial chokehold. And here's where people get trapped. The human brain is terrible at calculating long-term monthly commitments. You don't see $29 a month. You see affordable. But over 12 months, that small $29 commitment is $348. Over 5 years, $740. Multiply this by a dozen subscriptions and financing plans, and suddenly someone earning $45,000 a year is accidentally committing $8,000 and $12,000 annually without realizing it. That's not budgeting. That's sleepwalking into financial slavery. I once met a young guy who told me he doesn't spend much. But when we added up his monthly payments, subscriptions, phone financing, BNPL, car insurance, credit card minimums, random digital memberships, he was paying $184 a month before he even bought groceries. He wasn't bad with money. He just never realized the debt trap he'd built around himself. This is why the small monthly payment trap is so brutal. It turns your income into someone else's paycheck before you even touch it. And if you don't fix this trap before 40, you won't just lose money. You'll lose decades of financial freedom. Trap 2. Credit card compounding, the silent wealth killer. If the first trap drains you slowly, this one drains you aggressively. And the dangerous part is that the pain doesn't show up instantly. In fact, it often feels harmless at the start. Credit cards in 2025 are engineered with psychological tricks, more advanced than ever before. They reward you, they flatter you, they make you feel financially grown up. And before you even hit 30, they turn you into a long-term asset, not for your future, but for the bank's. Let me explain exactly how this trap ruins Americans before they reach 40. Most people think credit card debt becomes a problem because they overspent, but the real disaster doesn't come from your spending. It comes from the compounding interest quietly working against you every single day. And unlike investing, where compounding builds your wealth, here it destroys it. Let me show you how sneaky this really is. You swipe for a $200 dinner, you pick up a $600 phone upgrade, you use a card for a quick emergency, $350. Nothing crazy, right? But the problem begins when the statement arrives and you think, I'll just pay the minimum this month. That one sentence has cost Americans more money than inflation, taxes, and bad budgeting combined. Because the moment you choose the minimum payment, the bank wins. They've trapped you in a system designed to stretch a small balance into a multi-year profit machine. Here's the part that should genuinely scare you. A $1,000 balance at a 21% interest rate takes almost 10 years to pay off if you only make the minimum payments. You pay back more than double what you borrowed for the privilege of staying in debt. Now imagine the average American who holds $6,000 to $10,000 in credit card debt. Many genuinely believe they're paying it off, yet their balance barely moves. They're running on a financial treadmill, sweating, working, paying, but staying in the exact same place. I knew someone who worked 2 jobs, hardly spent on luxuries, yet couldn't understand why he always felt behind. When we broke down his credit card statements, the truth was brutal. He had paid $14,000 in interest over 7 years and still owed $8,000. He didn't have a spending problem. He had an interest problem. Credit card debt steals your future in 3 ways. 1. It locks your income into past decisions instead of future opportunities. 2. It kills your ability to invest. Your money is already spoken for. 3. It keeps you financially anxious, which leads to even more poor decisions. By 40, most people don't regret the purchases they made. They regret the years they spent paying for them. So here's the fix, and it's simpler than most people think. Never carry a balance for lifestyle purchases. If it doesn't earn you money, don't put it on a high-interest card. Aggressively pay off your smallest balance first. Momentum matters psychologically. It keeps you going. Switch to a 0% transfer card if possible, but only if you stop spending. Build a small emergency fund so you stop relying on credit cards for minor crises. This trap gets people earlier and harder than any other, but once you escape it, your money finally starts working for you instead of being siphoned off every month. This one is vicious because it doesn't look like a debt trap at all. In fact, it looks responsible. It looks organized. It looks like the kind of financial decision your parents nod approvingly at. And that's exactly why it destroys so many Americans before they hit 40, because it hides behind the illusion of being good money management. I call it the monthly payment mindset, and it's one of the most dangerous financial traps in America today. Here's how it works. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" people ask, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" That simple shift is the reason millions of people feel financially comfortable while being quietly buried under long-term obligations they barely understand. Let me show you how deep this trap goes. Someone walks into a car dealership knowing they can afford a $10,000 used car, but instead of sticking to that, a smooth salesperson shows them a brand new car for just $489 a month. The buyer doesn't think about the total. They don't think about the interest. They don't think about how long the loan is. They don't even think about whether they'll still like that car in 7 years. All they think is $489 a month. Yeah, I can handle that. And suddenly, they've committed to a $38,000 car they never should have touched. Same thing with furniture. Same thing with appliances. Same thing with tech upgrades. Same thing with rent-to-own scams. Same thing with every single subscription you forgot about but still pay for every month. Here's the part Americans never calculate. It's not the one monthly payment that destroys you. It's the accumulation of 10, 15, 20 monthly payments stacked on top of each other like financial bricks, crushing your cash flow. I coached someone who earned $72,000 a year. Good money, not wealthy, but solid. On paper, he should have had savings. He should have had investments. But at 33, he had nothing. Not a dollar saved. Barely $300 in his checking account. Do you know what happened when we broke his expenses down? He had 22 recurring payments every month. Streaming services, car payments, buy now, pay later purchases, a financed mattress, phone installment plans, gym, apps. software subscriptions, a financed couch, and 3 old BNPL debts he'd forgotten existed. None of these things felt like a big decision when he bought them. But collectively, they silently consumed 57% of his income. Before groceries, before gas, before rent. He wasn't irresponsible. He wasn't lazy. He was trapped in a system built to make small decisions feel harmless. That's why this trap is so dangerous. When you fall into the monthly payment mindset, you don't track your real expenses. You don't feel the weight of the purchase. You normalize long-term debt. You destroy your ability to build wealth. You quietly suffocate any room your budget had to grow. By 40, most people look back and realize they spent tens of thousands of dollars on financed items, and they have nothing left to show for it. But here's how you break out, and trust me, this is life-changing. 1. Stop measuring affordability by monthly payment. Always ask, what's the total cost, and is it worth it? 2. Avoid buy now pay later like a plague. It's designed to turn low-income people into repeat customers. 3. Delete subscriptions ruthlessly. If it's not saving you time or making you money, it's a luxury, not a need. 4. Only finance assets, never lifestyle. Cars, gadgets, furniture, clothes. They all lose value. Investments grow. Your financial life changes the moment you stop renting your lifestyle and start owning your decisions. This trap fools millions because it feels comfortable. But comfort is the most expensive drug in America right now. This trap is sneaky, maybe the sneakiest one on the entire list, because it never shows up as a big mistake. It shows up as tiny upgrades, tiny rewards, tiny treats, the kind you convince yourself you deserve. And the worst part? It feels good. It feels earned. It feels normal. That's why lifestyle creep ruins far more Americans by 40 than any market crash or recession ever will. Let me paint the picture for you. You get a raise. Nothing huge, just a couple hundred extra each month. Most people think they're going to save that extra money, maybe invest it, maybe pay off debt. But what actually happens? The first month, you celebrate the raise with a few nights out. The next month, your coffee order gets a little fancier. Then you upgrade your phone because, why not? I'm making more now. A few months later, you move to a slightly nicer apartment. Then you replace your perfectly fine car with one that better suits your income level. And before you know it, every dollar of that raise, and the next raise after that, has already been absorbed into your lifestyle. Not because you spent wildly, but because you upgraded quietly. And this is exactly why millions of people hit their mid-30s with higher incomes. Yet no savings, no investments, no emergency fund, no assets, no plan. Nothing but nicer versions of the same liabilities they had in their 20s. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. If your lifestyle rises at the same speed as your income, you're not progressing. You're running in place. I've met people earning $45,000 who were financially stable, and people earning $150,000 who were drowning. The difference? Not income, not opportunity, just discipline. Let me give you a real example. A guy I coached doubled his income in 5 years, from $38K to $76K. That should have been life-changing. But during those same 5 years, he upgraded everything: car, apartment, wardrobe, phone, vacations, gadgets, gym, nights out, holidays, weekends away. Nothing extreme, just little improvements. By 33, his savings account still had less than $1,000. His credit card balance was growing. He was terrified of emergencies, and he couldn't understand why he was still living paycheck to paycheck. He didn't have a money problem. He had a creep problem. Here's the psychological trick behind this trap. Lifestyle upgrades don't feel like spending. They feel like comfort, progress, and self-respect. And that's exactly why they drain your future quietly. So how do you escape lifestyle creep before it steals the next decade? Here's the framework that saved me in my 20s. 1. Freeze your lifestyle. Every time your income increases, keep your expenses the same for at least 6 to 112 months. 2. Automate your wealth. Set up automatic transfers to investing and saving so you don't accidentally spend the extra income. 3. Upgrade with intention, not emotion. Buy things because they improve your life, not because they stroke your ego. 4. Reward yourself with experiences, not burdens. Trips, hobbies, celebrations, these don't trap you in long-term payments. 5. Use raises to build freedom, not comfort. Income is fuel. Lifestyle creep is a fire. One builds your future, the other burns it down. Here's the harsh reality most Americans don't want to admit. You can't out-earn lifestyle creep. Even millionaires go broke from it. The only people who escape it are the ones who master their appetite for a little upgrade. Trap 4. Lifestyle creep, the quiet upgrade that secretly destroys your entire financial future. Lifestyle creep is one of those traps that doesn't hit you with alarms or warnings. It sneaks in disguised as progress, disguised as small rewards you tell yourself you've earned, disguised as upgrades that feel harmless in the moment but end up erasing entire years of financial growth. And the reason this trap ruins people so effectively is because it doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like a natural sign that life is getting better. Here's how it happens. You get a raise. Maybe it's a couple hundred extra each month, nothing dramatic, just enough to make life slightly more comfortable. In your mind, you're convinced this is finally the moment you'll start saving properly, maybe investing, maybe paying down debt. You feel responsible. You feel motivated. You feel ready. But then real life kicks in. You celebrate the raise with a nice dinner out, because why not? The next month, you upgrade your coffee routine because it feels like a small luxury you finally deserve. A little later, your phone contract ends, and instead of keeping the device that works perfectly fine, you switch to the newest model because you can afford it now. A few months after that, you start browsing apartments that look slightly better, slightly bigger, slightly more you, and suddenly your rent jumps by $200. Then comes the car upgrade, because your current one doesn't really match your income level anymore. And before you even realize what happened, every extra dollar you earned has already been swallowed by upgrades that felt justified at the time. No big splurges, no reckless spending, just quiet improvements that felt reasonable. And yet this is exactly why millions of Americans hit their mid-30s and early 40s with higher incomes than ever before, but absolutely nothing to show for it. No savings, no investments, no emergency fund, no assets, and no financial buffer between them and a single bad month. The painful truth is this. If your lifestyle expands at the same speed as your income, you're not moving forward. You're simply decorating the treadmill you've been running on since your 20s. I've met people earning $45,000 who had more financial stability than people earning 3 times that amount, and the difference wasn't intelligence, opportunity, or background. It was discipline, the ability to say, just because I can afford this, doesn't mean I should buy it. Let me give you a real example. A guy I mentored doubled his income over 5 years, from $38,000 to $76,000. On paper, that trajectory should have completely changed his life, but year after year, he upgraded everything around him: his car, his apartment, his wardrobe, his gadgets, his nights out, his vacations. Nothing extreme, nothing flashy, nothing outrageous. Just a constant stream of small improvements that quietly absorbed every raise he received. By 33 years old, he still had less than $1,000 saved. His credit card debt was creeping upward. He was stressed about emergencies, and he couldn't understand why financial progress always felt one step out of reach. He didn't have a money problem. He had a creep problem. Here's what makes this trap so dangerously effective. Lifestyle upgrades don't feel like spending. They feel like comfort, confidence, and deserved stability. But hidden inside those little improvements is the long-term cost of every goal you're delaying: home ownership, investment growth, business opportunities, financial freedom, and even simple peace of mind. So, how do you escape this trap before it eats the next decade of your life? Here's the system that saved me in my 20s. 1. Freeze your lifestyle when your income rises. Whenever you get a raise, keep your expenses the same for at least 6 to 12 months. This forces the extra money to work for you instead of disappearing into lifestyle upgrades you barely notice. 2. Automate your wealth before you increase your comfort. If you automate investing and saving, the money is already gone to your future before you get the chance to casually burn it on short-term upgrades. 3. Upgrade slowly and intentionally, not emotionally. Buy things because they genuinely improve your quality of life, not because they make you feel successful to other people. 4. Reward yourself with experiences, not liabilities. Trips, hobbies, memories. These enrich your life without trapping you in long-term financial commitments. 5. Use income growth to build freedom, not comfort. Income is fuel. Lifestyle creep is a fire. One accelerates your future, the other burns it away quietly. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't admit until it's too late. You cannot out-earn lifestyle creep. Not even millionaires can. The only people who escape it are the ones who control the urge to constantly upgrade. Trap. 5. The ego trap. How pride quietly blocks wealth before you even realize it. If there's one trap that has destroyed more potential millionaires than bad luck, bad timing, or bad opportunities, it's this one right here, the ego trap. And the reason it's so dangerous is because it doesn't feel like a financial mistake. It feels like self-confidence. It feels like strength. It feels like you're protecting your identity, while in reality you're slowly closing every door that could have changed your future. Let me explain exactly how this works. Ego doesn't show up yelling. It shows up quietly in the form of thoughts you think are harmless. I already know this. I'm better than this job. I don't need anyone's advice. I'm smarter than the people teaching me. I deserve more, even if I haven't earned it yet. And once those thoughts settle in, they start shaping your decisions, not in big explosive moments, but in thousands of tiny ways. Suddenly you're rejecting opportunities because they don't fit your idea of who you think you are. You're ignoring feedback because it bruises your pride. You're avoiding new skills because being a beginner makes you uncomfortable. You're pushing away mentors because you'd rather pretend you've got everything figured out. The ego trap doesn't ruin you instantly. It ruins you by keeping you exactly where you are while everyone else moves forward. Let me give you a real example from someone I coached. He was smart, extremely smart, but his biggest problem was that he knew he was smart. Every time someone tried to teach him something, he'd interrupt and say, "Yeah, I already know that." Every time someone offered help, he'd refuse it because he didn't want to look weak. Every time he faced a challenge, he'd insist that the problem wasn't him. It was the job, the company, the people, the environment, the situation, anything except his own lack of willingness to improve. His ego was a stronger prison than any financial limitation he had. And here's the heartbreaking part. He wasn't failing because he was incapable. He was failing because he was unteachable. That's what ego does. It blinds you to what you need the most. You know what every high-earning person I've met has in common? They have the humility to learn, even when they're already winning. They ask questions, they take notes, they observe, they listen. They put their pride aside long enough to let new skills sink in. And because of that, their earning potential multiplies faster than the people who think they're too good to learn. Let me tell you something from my own life. When I started my radio-controlled airplane business, I didn't walk into factories acting like I knew everything. I was a rookie, I was out of my depth, and instead of faking confidence, I leaned into curiosity. I asked questions, I watched how experts worked, I learned from people far smarter than me. That humility built partnerships that lasted years, partnerships that made me millions. If I'd walked in with a bruised ego, pretending to know everything, none of that would have happened. Ego kills opportunities before they manifest. Humility creates opportunities before you even expect them. So how do you break out of this trap before it locks you into a fixed life? Here's the system I used. 1. Become a student in every room you enter. Even if you know the topic, assume there's something you don't know, because there is. 2. Let people teach you without feeling threatened. Learning isn't weakness. Learning is leverage. 3. Seek feedback, not validation. Feedback builds skill. Validation builds ego. 4. Surround yourself with people who are better than you. The room you're in will either stretch your abilities or suffocate your potential. 5. Choose growth over pride every single time. Pride protects your feelings. Growth protects your future. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your ego wants to keep you comfortable, but your future requires you to be coachable. Trap 6. The blame loop. How you lose all your power without even noticing. If Trap 5 blocks your growth from the inside, Trap 6 does something even worse. It convinces you that nothing in your life is your responsibility. And once that belief takes root, your financial progress doesn't just slow down, it shuts down completely. Let's talk about the blame loop. Most people don't realize they're stuck in it because it feels so natural, almost comforting. Every time something goes wrong, they reach for the same habit, finding someone or something to blame. It could be a boss who didn't appreciate them, an economy that feels unstable, parents who didn't teach them enough, a system they believe is against them, or even luck that never seems to land on their side. And when that becomes the default reaction, something dangerous happens. Their power drains away, one excuse at a time, until they no longer believe they can change their situation. Here's the hard truth. You can't build financial freedom with a mindset that hands all control to the outside world. Let me paint the picture. Imagine holding two objects in your hands, a magnifying glass and a mirror. Every time you face a challenge, you pick one. Most people grab the magnifying glass without thinking. They zoom in on teachers, employers, politics, family, fate, circumstances, everything except the person in the mirror. And the more they do that, the more they subconsciously teach themselves that they're passengers in their own life. Passengers don't grow. Passengers don't adapt. Passengers don't create opportunities. Passengers wait, and waiting is the single slowest path to regret. When I was younger, I faced situations that would have made it very easy to blame someone else. My carpentry manager bullied me relentlessly, and there were days I genuinely wanted to walk out the door and label him as the reason my future wasn't working. But I asked myself a simple question that changed the trajectory of my life. If I leave this situation blaming him, what am I actually gaining, and what am I losing? If I had walked away in anger, I would have left with nothing except a story. Instead, I forced myself to flip the situation. If I was going to endure it anyway, I might as well squeeze every drop of skill out of the job. And those skills later became the foundation for a business that made me wealthy. Not because the circumstances were fair, but because I refused to let blame rob me of growth. That's what people don't realize. Blame feels good in the moment, but it steals your future in silence. People stuck in the blame loop don't improve their skills because it's not their fault. They don't budget because the economy is the problem. They don't save because life is too expensive. They don't invest because the market is rigged. They don't try something new because the timing isn't right. They stay frozen, thinking the world owes them a perfect environment before they can take action. But life never hands you a perfect environment. You build your results despite the imperfections, not because they don't exist. The people who grow, financially and personally, all share the same habit. They choose the mirror, even when it's uncomfortable. They ask themselves the hard questions. What part of this situation is mine to improve? What can I learn from this? What decision did I make that led me here? What action can I take next? How do I turn this into progress instead of pain? Responsibility isn't guilt. Responsibility is power. It's the moment you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing your approach to the world. By 40, the people who blame everything except themselves end up repeating the same year of life over and over again, trapped in a cycle they don't even recognize. But the people who choose accountability, even when it's difficult, become unstoppable. They adapt faster, they learn quicker, they build stronger careers, they make smarter financial moves, and most importantly, they regain control over their future. And that's what this entire part is about, taking your power back. Because the moment you stop pointing outward and start looking inward, your financial life doesn't just improve, it transforms. Trap 7. The comfort zone. Cage, the silent prison that locks your future down. Out of every trap we've covered, this is the one that sneaks up on people the quietest and destroys their financial potential the slowest. And that's exactly why most people never escape it. Because Trap 7 isn't loud, dramatic, or painful. It's soft, predictable, familiar, and deceptively safe. It's the comfort zone, the invisible cage that millions of people mistake for stability. Here's the truth most people don't realize until they're well into their 30s. Comfort doesn't protect your future. It prevents it. Let me show you what I mean. When you're young, your comfort zone feels like a warm blanket. The job you've outgrown still feels fine. The routines you repeat every day feel manageable. The habits that don't challenge you feel easy. And because you're not failing, you convince yourself nothing is wrong. But what you don't see is that every year you stay in the same place, your world becomes smaller. Your courage shrinks. Your curiosity fades. Your ambition dulls. And eventually, the life outside your comfort zone feels too intimidating to explore, even when you desperately want more. By 35, this becomes one of the biggest regrets people carry. Not because they took risks that failed, but because they avoided risks that would have changed everything. Let me take you back to a moment in my own life. When I was younger, school made me feel like I was falling behind. I wasn't academic. Traditional coursework didn't click for me. And if I had stayed on that path, safe, predictable, comfortable, I would have lived a life completely different from the one I built. But I chose discomfort. I forced myself into environments where I had to learn new skills, deal with real problems, and grow faster than my fear wanted me to. My carpentry apprenticeship wasn't comfortable. My side hustles weren't comfortable. Taking a bank loan to start my first business definitely wasn't comfortable. And starting a YouTube channel at 53, when most people my age were winding down, was one of the most uncomfortable decisions I ever made. But do you know what happened every time I stepped out of my comfort zone? My life expanded, my opportunities expanded, my income expanded, I expanded. That's the reality people don't want to face. Your comfort zone doesn't keep you safe. It slowly suffocates your potential while making you think everything is okay. And that is the most dangerous trap of all. The problem is never that people don't want a better life. The problem is that the leap between where they are and where they want to be feels too unsettling. They'd rather stay in the job they hate because at least they know what to expect. They'd rather avoid learning a new skill because they might look stupid. They'd rather hold on to predictable routines because change feels risky. But the real risk is staying still in a world that's moving faster every single year. Let me give you a simple image. Imagine a circle. That circle is your comfort zone. Inside it, everything feels familiar. Outside it, everything you want exists: higher income, new opportunities, better skills, stronger confidence, more freedom. But as long as you stay inside that circle, you're trading your future for temporary ease. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to leave. So, how do you break free? Not by taking massive leaps that terrify you into paralysis, but by stretching your comfort zone gradually, intentionally, repeatedly. You take one step beyond what feels easy, then another, and each step widens the circle. You make discomfort your training partner instead of your enemy, and once your comfort zone grows, it never fully shrinks back. Here's the mindset shift that can genuinely change the next decade of your life. If something makes you nervous but excited, move toward it. If something challenges you but grows you, commit to it. If something feels uncomfortable but expands your skills, embrace it. If something forces you to evolve, don't run from it. Lean into it, because your life won't punish you for trying, but it will punish you for staying exactly the same. By 40, the people who stayed comfortable look back with a punch of regret so strong it almost knocks the wind out of them. Not because they failed, but because they never even stepped onto the pitch. And the people who embraced discomfort, they look back with pride, momentum, and a level of freedom most people only dream about.